down to the devil's double.
It gives me such great pleasure to welcome you to NCC on this November 9th. I am so glad that many of you I've seen previous, some of you are new. So whether you have been here before or you haven't, or somewhere in between, welcome to NCC. I'm so honored and glad that you are here with us for this gathering this morning to celebrate a story, a journey together, heart, mind, and soul. We are gathering today because in many ways, this is an opportunity to do and celebrate something that is so human, something that we all share as human beings. And that is the power of story and the dream and vision of memory. And so we get to honor all of that today through the experience and the example of Karen Baum Gordon. Before we bring on Ms. Gordon later on, I just want to offer a word of thanks to folks who helped make this all possible. I just want to say a word of thanks, whether they can hear me now or maybe they're watching on the stream or they'll hear about it this week. I want to acknowledge our friends at Laguna Beach Books, Jane, Sydney, and Lynn. Thank y'all so much for all you did to help us promote this event and being a part of our story and our experience here today. Let's have a hand for Laguna Beach Books, everybody. Let's do it. Let's do it. And then I want to acknowledge my friend Dr. Michelle McCormick, our entire NCC leadership and board for their vision in seeing this possibility for today. Let's give them a hand as well. Come on, let's do it. And then I want to thank all of you for taking the time to be with us on your Sunday mornings. Y'all could be doing any number of things right now with your days, but I'm so glad that you are here and that we are being and celebrating story together. And then finally, my hand for my friend, Jason Feddy. Everybody, let's do it. Let's do it. Come on. And then for a story of memory that goes back through the decades. Today is November the 9th. And today is the anniversary of Kristallnacht. And for those who don't know, Kristallnacht is an important day in the story of Jewish folks because on that day, so many years ago in Germany, there was the fomenting of an anti-Jewish riot that was stoked by the Nazi leaders of that day. And they had the desire and the willingness to try to divide and stoke violence and push for vandalism and tear things apart to break the glass, but really the hearts of so many that night of nights so many years ago. Hearts affected, generations forever changed. Now we know through the history that story was not something that was done out of kind of a happenstance, right? It was premeditated, right, Karen? It was pre-scheduled. It was stoked by folks in power. It was state-sponsored vandalism and arson at its worst, no doubt. But what I've come to learn is that even in the hardest of times, and the worst of the worst, incredible stories come forward. Beautiful memories are forged. Wonderful dreams can be made true. And I understand from Karen that her grandparents were impacted by the night of broken glass, right, Karen? So they have a personal story connected to that. And so they themselves have been telling that story over and over and over and over again through the generations so that we never forget. We never discard. We never throw away the importance of that memory and how it's changed so many lives and how it all shows us how the worst of the worst can look and what it means for all of us to rise above, to do better, to love more, to nourish deeply, to bring peace to the world, however we are able. And so I stand today with appreciation for the story of Kristallnacht. I was in D.C. earlier this summer at the Holocaust Museum. Cyrus, let's show them the photograph. And what an incredible experience for me to read and to hear about the night of broken glass and how it has propelled stories of hope, stories upon stories. It's not my personal story, but somehow I've been changed by hearing about it. And so that's my expectation for today, that no matter how you found yourself into this room, no matter what you bring into this space, no matter what is on your heart, I hope that you get what you need from this experience, just like I did when I went to the beautiful museum this past summer and learned about the night of broken glass. So here's what I want to do. I want to take a moment. I'm going to light a peace candle. We have a tradition here at NCC where we light a peace candle, and we do this in memory of all the hurting parts of the world, all the warring parts of the world. And we don't just do that for this country or that country or this community or that community. We do it for ourselves. Because sometimes we've got some worrying things happening in our own hearts. We've got some things that are a little bit unsettled in here. And so we light this candle so that we each find our way back. One breath, one story, one hug, one kiss at a time. Let me light this peace candle for you, for our community, for the world. Let's take a moment of silence, and as Jason comes, let's prepare our hearts for our next offering. Let's just take a moment of silence for Kristallnacht, for stories upon stories, for generations of hope and healing, and the possibility that you and I can play our own part in building a better world. Jason?
Thank you, Jason. Can I hug you?
You may. Actually, you shouldn't because I've got a terrible cold.
It's okay.
Are you sure?
Uh-huh.
Because you'll get it.
Uh-uh.
That's how I got it, hugging people.
Okay, we'll do a shoulder side thing like that. Oh, I
My
like
favourite position of all time.
that. Thank you.
For hugging, I mean.
We're so blessed to have Jason in our community. Thank you so much. Yeah? And thank you so much for coming. It's so good to see familiar faces and new ones here today. And I am just privileged to introduce an amazing woman today. Karen and I reconnected at our 50th high school reunion in Dallas, Texas. So that means I hadn't seen her in 50 years. And we were in drill team together. And this morning, I blew the same whistle that I used when I was lieutenant on the drill team with her. And she went like this. So we're getting together next week in Napa with some of our high school girlfriends. And that's how it started. And we were talking to each other about this trip to Napa. And she started telling me a little bit about her life and learned about the book. And she's a writer. And she's written an amazing memoir. And I won't go into the details about the book because she'll tell you about that. But she did use archival documents, correspondence, and photos. And she wants us to know that it's more than just about the horror of the Holocaust, but it's also about relationships, forgiveness, and the perseverance to learn more about a loved one's story. And of course, as a psychologist, I love it when we tell our narratives, our memoirs. There's a lot of healing that can happen. But I want to tell you a little bit about this book. It was an ABC Good Morning America Pick of the Week, nominated for the American Library Association's Sophie Brody Medal for Outstanding Achievement in Jewish Literature. It went into its second printing before its first anniversary. It is the #1 ebook seller for the University of Tennessee Press, and it appeared at the 2023 London Book Fair. She has been featured in venues like the Jewish Heritage Museum. She participated on a panel with the journalist and author Jonathan Friedman and Lord Daniel Finkelstein. Lord Daniel, and it was, the title was this, I love the title, Using Testimony to Solve a Mystery and to Dilute Multi-Generational Trauma. And she did that in London for the Association of Jewish Refugees. Anyway, so we're at the Montage last night having a little time together, and I said, Karen, I just realized I don't know anything about you in her adult life. I know about the book, but somehow I left off the last paragraph of her bio, which says everything about her life. She went to Harvard, and she got a master's at Columbia Business School. Karen. My Karen. She co-founded Strategic Horizons, an executive coaching and management consulting firm, after having worked as a consultant at McKinsey & Company and managing several New York City restaurants. I didn't know that. She trained as a chef in France with another one of our high school girlfriends who's going to be there next week, a Dallas native. Karen lives with her husband and her black lab in Brooklyn and also spends time in Vermont. She's the proud mother of 2 boys, 2 sons, and she's an active member of the Brooklyn Heights Synagogue and served as president of that congregation. And so with that, I will bring you up, my friend. Please enjoy Karen.
Wow. So the first thing I say is, who would have thunk? I mean, I'm telling you, 50 years ago that, wow, here we are. It's amazing. And I have to say, you'll have to hear these thank yous again because I am just so grateful to Michelle for making this happen, so grateful to your community, the Neighborhood Community Church, for saying yes, to Pastor Rod, Annie for her behind-the-scenes work, to Sue Cross, thank you so much, and Laguna Beach Books. And as Pastor Rod said, you guys could be a lot of other places right now, and you chose to be here, including you, Jason. You are a busy guy, so thank you, really, very grateful. So I would like to start with, every talk is a little different, I have to say, but we are in, dare I say, an amazing moment right now, right? And so I'm going to start with a quote. I don't usually do this. They were awakened on Sunday morning without forewarning. The police, armed with weapons, came to the front door. You have to leave exactly this way, otherwise you'll be punished by the most severe methods. They were simply taken from their homes and marched through the streets. They were then processed. When they were deported, their property and assets were confiscated. Others heard many accounts of people being taken away or jailed. And at that time, some were released, but returned broken in body and spirit. How many of you have heard basically something almost verbatim like that today, yesterday, last week in the news, last month? And dare I say, that is a verbatim quote from my book. So I get chills when I read it. I just, it underscores the importance of history and what we must learn and the lessons we have to take from it and how we have to think about moving forward. It's about moving forward. So let me share with you top line about my book. So top line is that my father, at the age of 21, came to this country from Frankfurt, Germany in 1936. He left behind his parents. His sister emigrated to what was then Palestine, and he enlisted in the American Army. He became a naturalized citizen. He then participated in the liberation of Buchenwald. Meanwhile, his parents said, oh, we're Germans first, Jews second. My grandfather was a World War I vet. They were, quote, older. It doesn't seem so old to me now. They're not going to bother with us. We're going to stay back and take the last train out. And they didn't. They perished in the Łódź ghetto. So fast forward, my father, by the way, which I don't know that Michelle would necessarily remember him, but he was very extroverted, in the world, engaged with life. And once he retired, I have to tell you, and my friends back in Dallas my father couldn't find time for lunch. He had to plan like 6 weeks out. He was very in the world. And yet, at the age of 86, my father attempted to take his own life. Now, he went on to live 7 wonderful years and didn't remember that attempt. And he left a note that said, I am a tortured soul. God, please forgive me. I, after he died, became a woman with a mission. What was that? What was that tortured soul? Because I am telling you, if you met him, you didn't sense that. He was not a dour, sour, bitter person. That's not how he carried himself. So I really became a woman with a mission. I am not a historian. I am not a scholar. I was out to solve a mystery. And as Michelle said, through archival documents, I had the gift of these 88 letters that my grandmother had written to my father that he had kept. I had them all professionally translated. That's how my journey began. And my father also didn't know, he never knew, he knew his parents were in the Łódź ghetto. They were deported from Frankfurt, but he didn't know the conditions of death, the date of death of his father. He never found that out. So ordinary people helped an ordinary person like me on this journey. And I want to share with you who a few of those folks were. So the first one is a fellow by the name of Nat Lamar, who lived 8 doors down from me. I kind of knew Nat. We both had dogs that we walked and exchanged niceties. And Nat, I was catching up with him one afternoon, and I said, yeah, I just delivered my spiritual journey talk at our synagogue for our high holidays. And my husband had the great idea of me doing it in the form of a letter to my grandparents, because I was in the thick of having these letters translated. And he said, oh, I'd love to read that if you'd be willing to share it. So I said, sure. So I drop it in his mailbox. The next time I run into him, he says, you have a book inside of you. I was like, a book inside of me? I don't think so. First of all, Michelle and I had an English teacher that was like terrifying and very difficult. But really a book, I mean, I was writing a few essays. I was having these letters professionally translated. I was keeping a journal, but a book. So these essays I started dropping in his mailbox. He would line edit them, put them back in my mailbox. This went on for a handful of years. So Nat was an editor at McGraw-Hill. He was also African American, gay, and in the class of 55 at Harvard. Try that on. He was very private, and I came to learn, we had him over to our house for tea once a year on his birthday, and we came to learn that I knew he was from Atlanta. He grew up, and I figured it out exactly, an 8-minute walk from Martin Luther King Jr. In fact, he was quite friendly with Martin Luther King Jr. Their mothers used to play bridge together, and he helped write some of Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches. How blessed was I that this man came into my life? Incredible. The second ordinary person who I had the blessing of meeting is a woman by the name of Salamea. So Salamea, I was determined to find out, like, a lot of pieces of the puzzle. Like, my grandfather, what day did he die? And what do they say the conditions of his death were? Well, I did a lot of research, and one of the things I ended up on was the Holocaust Museum's website. And there they had a recording of a panel of survivors of that ghetto. And I thought, oh, well, survivors of that ghetto, I bet there were 4 of them. I'm going to reach out to them. Surely they have been in search of people. I bet other people have asked them, could they find or tell them anything? So I did good old-fashioned whitepages.com. I did a reverse phone book lookup, a reverse address lookup, and sure enough, found all their phone numbers, called them all, left voicemails thinking, yeah, well, we'll see. The next morning, I'm having breakfast before my day starts with some folks that somebody else here knows who they are, Janet, Ann, and Kathy, and we're having breakfast in Midtown before our business day starts, and my phone rings. And it's a 914 area code. Now, my brother lives in 914, but it wasn't him. And I knew it was one of those numbers. It was Dr. Salamea Cape. So I pick up the phone, I go to the lobby, and she says, here's Dr. Salamea Cape. You left me a message. And she had a very high-pitched, Julia Child-like voice with a Polish accent, if you can hold that all in one. How can I help you? So I proceed to say, my grandparents, they perished in which ghetto? She says, yes, I was 14. I remember when the Germans came in. She herself was Polish, born in the town of Woods. Try this one. Born in the town of Woods. An inhabitant of the ghetto. Afterwards went to which medical school? Ended up in this country. So we proceed to chat. And I had done my research on each of these 4 people that were on the panel. So anything I could find out, who they were married to, how many kids, anything, what they did as their profession. So Dr. Salamea Cape had published a few writings. I mean, they were just online. So during the conversation, I said, so Dr. Cape, I have to ask you one question. You know, the essay you wrote when you went to anatomy class at which medical school, right after the war, you said that the cadaver was the body of the commandant of the ghetto. Was that really true? Oh my God. She was like, I never write anything not true. What do you mean, is it true? She was so insulted. And I thought, all right, well, I just blew it. That's, I just blew this relationship. That's not happening. But then at the end, I sheepishly, after chatting for like 45 minutes, I sheepishly said, so Dr. Cape, I mean, I would love to drive to Larchmont and to meet you and have a coffee. And she said, no, I come into the city, we have lunch. I said, okay, we have lunch. Let's go to the city. So she comes into the city. We have our date. I remember it was a Thursday. I remember exactly, October 10th, Thursday, 2 o'clock. It's back in 2009. And I'm in Sarah Beth's kitchen. And there's no Dr. Salome Cape. So I'm thinking, uh-oh. So I go up to an elderly woman sitting by herself. Are you Dr. Salome Cape? No. A woman walks in. Are you Dr. Salome Cape? No. So now I think, okay, I blew it. Either I have the wrong date and time, or she does, or she's decided this is not worth her time. But in she walks, and we proceed to have a 3.5-hour lunch. You know, one of those where you go into the dinner hour, like they're saying, can we reset your table? And we chat, and she says to me, well, if your grandparents perished in the Witch Ghetto, they're buried in the Witch Jewish Cemetery. And I said, what? She said, what do you think? I said, I think, I just assumed those bodies were all cremated. She said, no, I'm friendly with the head of the cemetery there. I'm going to find out. I said, well, if there are tombstones there, if there are graves, I am on the next plane. So she says, well, if you go, I go with you, because it'll make it easier for you. I'm like, you'll go with me, make it easier? So fast forward, in the end, there weren't the records, there weren't the tombstones, because the records were missing for exactly when my grandparents perished. And so she helped me to put up a memorial plaque there. So that was the second such person. She really became part of our family in an amazing way. So the third ordinary person is somebody who's on the other side of the Atlantic. I made 3 trips to Frankfurt, 1 trip to Łódź. So on one of those trips to Frankfurt, I'm with my girlfriend, Lauren Glant, and there's a friend here, Maura, who's originally, she's from here but lived in Brooklyn, and we know each other. So Lauren and I are on this journey together. And I want to see my father's, the house he grew up in and lived for 19 of his 21 years. I have their address. And it's pouring with rain outside. There we are with our umbrellas, like walking down. It's a pretty main thoroughfare, Reuterweg in Frankfurt. So we're walking intentionally on the other side of the street. So when we see it, it's a wide, but so when we see it, we could look at it from afar. And so we're huddled under this awning, and she's great in terms of knowing architecture, and I knew part of it had been bombed out, the top part. We're sort of musing about the house. And I said, okay, Lauren, it's time to go in. And she's like, what do you mean go in? I said, well, I mean, we got to go inside. We got to go ring bells. Somebody's going to let us in. She's like, oh, no. I am not doing that. I said, well, okay, you sit here. I'm going. So I go across the street. I look at the buzzer. And again, I had used the reverse address lookup in good old whitepages.com, the version in Germany. And I had called ahead a few people. So 2 people that I reached. One of them, because it was apartments, it was about 6 apartments. One of them I actually believe hung up on me mid-sentence. Now, my German wasn't great, but it was okay. The second one was relatively, I wouldn't say friendly, but engaging. And he said, sure, when you're here, just let me know and we'll arrange a date and time. Until the next day when he emailed me and he said, upon reflection, this is not a public viewing place and you are not welcome here. So I thought, okay. So I looked at the buzzer and I thought, those are two that I'm going to avoid. I won't ring their bells, but I'm going to ring every other bell. Somebody's going to let me in. And sure enough, somebody lets me in. And I open the door, and there at the top of the stairway is this 40-something-year-old guy, not very, he's in his gym shorts, not so well kempt. He's got a bag of garbage outside his door. And he says, was wollen Sie? What do you want? And I said, I just would like to see the inside of this building. My dad grew up here, and I studied German for 7 years back in the day in high school, but you don't use it, you lose it. So, but there I was saying, and he said, okay. And then I thought, could I come into your apartment? No, 9. I said, okay. So then I waved to Lauren to come over, and just to be in that space was extraordinary. Much of it was the original, at least my friend Lauren said so, I think she knew. But to see the hand railings, to see the stairways, that's where my dad learned to climb stairs, for God's sake. And then the crystal glass doorknob and the milk glass for the door that went down to the basement, and the original flooring, I have to say, being in that space, and others that I visited, was chilling and amazing and heartwarming and so many things all at once. It was just incredible. So along the way, there were many what I call emotional punches in the gut. So I want to share with you, the first one was on August 31st, 2009. So my dad passed away in March of 2009, and I started having the letters translated actually shortly before he passed away. And the fellow who was helping me was the former professor, mentor, and dear friend now of a friend. And he was born in Germany. He could read this beautiful Süderling German script. He translated the first letter for me. And, kind of like a kid, you can't wait for the gifts, to open up the presents. To me, I couldn't wait for 88 letters to have the last letter translated. So I said, Andy, let's just skip to the last letter. I really want to know what's in the last letter. So remember, this is 2009. It's, the cell phones were not what they are today. Our landline rings. It's Andy. And he says, okay, so I'm ready to translate this letter for you now. Real time, now. He said, I've already read through it a few times. So I grab my piece of paper and I scribble as fast as he tells me, and I end up a total puddle of tears. And I go downstairs in our house, and there my husband and our youngest son, Adam, are watching the Baltimore Orioles versus the Yankees in Baltimore. And they see my face, and they hit mute, and I proceed to read through my blurred vision because of my tears, the verbatim of what I had written. And they gave me a hug. And all I wanted to do was go upstairs and go to bed. So I go upstairs. Now, I like to read before I go to bed, even though I half the time fall asleep after a few pages. I had just received The Chronicle of the Witch Ghetto, which is a book about that thick. It is, the Germans were amazing record keepers. The Nazis were amazing record keepers. So they had assigned a group of Jews to take notes of the statistics, the key pieces. This group had done some underground work and saved it. And they wrote more than just what they were asked to do. And the editors of the book started in the introduction to explain how the book is laid out. Now, normally a book this thick, frankly, I might look at the pictures, I might look at the index, maybe the table of contents, but I wouldn't necessarily read it word for word. This book, I was reading word for word. Like, what if there's something in there about my grandparents? And it's going to tell me what life was like. So I opened this book. You couldn't make this up. The introduction, page 1, which normally I wouldn't even read the introduction. Page 1, paragraph 1. The authors say, the editors say, so, you know, it'll start with the weather, and then it'll do this, and then it'll mention some big events. And in that paragraph at the end is my grandmother's name, May 4th, 1942. And I just thought, this is a message from the universe. This is a message like, keep on going. It was extraordinary. So another emotional punch in the gut was when we did do that trip to Wutch with Salamea. And the we was I, our 2 sons, who at the time were 17 and 20, and her at the time, she was at the time 84, and her then 46-year-old son. The 5 of us are going on this trip. The 5 of us have never met, so keep that one. Oh my God. So we meet at the Warsaw train station at the appointed time to catch the train to Wutch, and we run and get on the train, and, you know, and John, her son, is really like a big kid, and he immediately connects with Matthew and Adam, our sons. And there we are, this 5-some. And we have the schedule, and we get out in Wutch, and there we are on the train platform, and I'm getting all emotional, you know, oh my God, this is the rickety old platform that my grandparents got out on. These are the rickety old stairs that they walked on. This is what they saw, you know, this kind of nothing field. Wow. And nobody is there, by the way. Like, nobody, and nobody got off there. So we you know, stiff upper lip, we start to walk. Surely we will find somebody. So no, it felt like we walked forever. I'm sure we didn't walk more than, I don't know, 3 or 4 blocks. And we finally find a taxi, and the guy says, Wutch, you got off a stop too early. So I'm like, oh, that's not the rickety old train step. That is nothing. This is nothing about my grandparents. So that was kind of a almost comical and confusing moment. So the third emotional punch in the gut that I want to share with you is on one of my trips to Frankfurt, we were having installed, you may or may not have heard of something called a Stolperstein, which translates to stumbling stone. So there's an art, 20 years ago he started this. He makes each one of these brass little cobblestones that get inlaid in front of the homes of people who perished in the Holocaust. And this is all over Europe, not just in Germany. And I think it's up to 92,000 of these, and it's in 20 cities in Germany and all over Europe. Anyway, so, and what they do, it's paid for by the community. You as a descendant initiate this, and there's a little ceremony when it's inlaid. And so I wasn't going to miss that. So I went over for that ceremony. I went with a cousin, kind of a distant cousin, as well as another distant cousin who happened to live in Berlin, the 3 of us. Okay, so we're walking down what's called the Zeil in Frankfurt, which is a big pedestrian mall, huge, you know, with all the stores. And we're walking down the Zeil to get to Rodrick, again, Rodrick, where this ceremony is going to take place. And I'm, maybe like from here to where the doorway is, away from my cousins, just kind of walking in my own peaceful place and kind of, taking some deep breaths and getting ready for this, what I believe will be an incredibly moving ceremony. And there, off to the side, is a musician. Now this is in Frankfurt, playing Que Sera, Sera. And what's amazing about that is that my dad did not have a good voice, neither do I. I had to mouth the words in Miss Johnson's music class. But he did sing that song all the time in the house. I don't know why, I don't know from whence that came, but that was the song he sang. And I have to tell you, when I heard, I always get chills when I say this because I felt like he was there. Like, again, the universe was speaking to me, like, keep on going. I was on the Zile and somebody was playing that song of all songs. So it was incredible. So in general, I've given you little snippets of my journey, and I just want to say I'm always learning. As recently as 2 weeks ago, I learned some more about my dad and stuff. Amazing. I could keep on going, but I won't. But it's been an amazing journey and such a gift. And one of the learnings was from the rabbi of our synagogue that I grew up in. He wasn't the rabbi when I was a little girl, but he was the rabbi for the last, 35, 40 years. And so he knew my parents very well. And when I was writing this book, I reached out to him a couple of times. And after he read it, he said, so, usually with survivors, what we want to say is, attaboy, attagirl, you did it. You made a life for yourself. How great. He said, but what you've done is you've really talked about the surviving the surviving. Surviving the surviving. And I do think that's what my dad did. And I do think he was holding a lot in. And I think I solved the mystery. And what I want to say to each of you is, if you happen to have read my book, I'm grateful, very grateful. And if you end up buying a copy today or reading it at some point, I'm grateful. But I would say to you, if you haven't read it, before you read it, think about who in your life you want to know more about. And find it out. If they're still around, ask them. Don't wait. Don't wait. And if they're already gone, it's not too late. 2 feet in the internet and a little determination goes a long way. And you don't have to write a book, but what you'll learn, oh my gosh, as Pastor Rod said at the beginning, the power of story, the power of knowing from whence we come is, there's nothing like it. And so I would urge you, consider that, think about that. It's really a gift you're giving yourself, but it's a bigger gift. It's a gift you're giving the world. It's learning from history and from your own history. So with that, I say thank you so much for your attention, and I am very interested in questions and what's on your mind and all of that.
So can we do it?
Yep. Yes.
Thank you. So we want to have an opportunity for you to ask questions. Do a little Q&A right now. And afterward, when we finish up today, after Jason sings, we're going to go over to Bridge Hall for a wonderful time of snacking and sharing with one another. And Karen will be signing books if you'd like to take one and enjoy it, right? So let's go with our questions, and I'll come out to, Patty, you want to start?
What was the deepest heartfelt lesson that you, your soul, got from that? And of course, that would ripple on to your children. What was your deepest takeaway from the exploration?
Nice, deepest takeaway.
I'm going to give you two. So one is, Salome said, if it is anger and bitterness you hold in your heart, it will kill you. And this is from a woman who, oh my God, I mean, I won't go into all of it, but who lived through the time in the ghetto, who, when we went to the cemetery, walked by the mass grave, which was meant for her. And this woman was not an angry woman. So that's one. And I would say my father was not an angry man. That's huge. And I was angry, to be honest, I was angry when my dad attempted to take his life. Like, how dare you leave us? So that was a big lesson. The other one was about collective guilt. And I've coached many German folks. My father went back to Germany with my mother, you know, traveling a handful of times. And I would say, and I know because he wrote about it, that he definitely felt collective guilt when he, was liberating Buchenwald, marching the citizens of Weimar through Buchenwald who claimed they didn't know anything. He really strongly believed in collective guilt. But then, in 1945, my dad was stationed in Marburg. This happened across Germany to set up a free press. My dad did not know anything about newspapers, really, but he and 4 other fellows, he was in charge of this group, and they were meant to hire editors, publishers, you know, from the local people to create a free press again. And he had to interview people, and he said he began to see individuals as individuals. And that was really quite something. And that helped him get past that notion of collective guilt. Elie Wiesel will say, some are guilty, but all are responsible. And Rabbi Joshua Heschel will say, only the guilty are guilty, not their children. So that was big for me and a real gift. And I will tell you, because I'm talking about this now, just a couple of weeks ago, what I did learn is I get an email, and this is like, for me, this book is the gift that keeps on giving. I found a cousin I didn't know. So many incredible things. I get an email from a random guy in Marburg. He's a retired pediatrician. He has gotten into searching history. He has written about the Jewish pediatricians during wartime. He saw an article about my dad in the 50th anniversary press of the Marburg, the 50th anniversary of the Marburg Press, and he sort of became interested in my dad. Anyway, he tracks me down, and he wants to know more about my dad, and he attaches this translated letter that's in the back. My father wrote his own autobiography with his sister back to back. And in the back of that are some documents. Now, I went through almost all those documents, except I missed one. And there was a letter from a woman, a local woman in Marburg, who was a philanthropist, a community person, a community organizer in a way. And she wrote this letter, he translated, that said, and Lieutenant Baum, you really saw us as individuals. your humanity will never be forgotten. And I thought, oh my God. You know, it's one thing for my father to say he didn't believe in collective guilt and treated them as individuals, but you never know how it really landed on other people. How was he received? And that was extraordinary. So 2 lessons. Don't hold anger, and there is no such thing as collective guilt.
Anyone else? Somebody over here?
Hello. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. In some ways, I think maybe you answered some of my question with the previous question, but I was curious, since you'd started this talk today saying that when your father had passed, the note about having such tortured soul sense, that what could you share some stories of what it was like growing up with your father? Did you see signs of, and then you did share, you know, such positive sides of him and his experiences in the military, but was there, what sort of, do you recall, could you share what you recalled about witnessing growing up with him, what he shared or didn't share, how he behaved as a father that way?
Yes.
With knowing all of that as the adult that you didn't know
Yes.
as a man beyond being a father.
So my mother was from Nuremberg, by the way, and came here at 14. So both my parents were German. And I will tell you, growing up, they didn't talk about it much. If asked, my father would answer a question. But it really wasn't in the spoken milieu of our house. They used to light, we call them yard side candles, the memorial candles. My father lit 2 of them the same day around the holidays. I never thought twice about that. They had buried in the photo albums, you know, the old photo albums with the 4 black corners. There was an album from when he liberated Buchenwald that had very intense pictures. And when I asked, I'm sure he gave me age-appropriate answers. I don't really remember. But honestly, he didn't talk about it much. After he had triple bypass at the age of 75, the floodgates opened. And my father became a docent at the Dallas Holocaust Museum. He spoke to the Texas State Legislature. He was on the circuit, and he wrote. And what I have now learned from others as well is that, you know, it's the unspoken, and that's what was powerful. And Jung will say that it's the trauma, it's the heaviness that isn't spoken that can be far more powerful than the spoken. And I think that's the household I grew up in. And when I went away to college, this woman had the foresight of starting a group of us, 8 of us, whose parents were all Holocaust survivors. And what we shared was amazing. The sense of responsibility, but all of us had that same, it wasn't talked about so much. So thank you for that question.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
I'm moving over here because I can't really see you. Blinded by the light. I love the light.
Beautiful point about the collective guilt. But I'm curious, just because I'm of German heritage and French, you know, it says in the Bible that the sins of the father were passed on for 8 generations. And we know that we carry the DNA of ancestors through how many generations. And I think, frankly, I've been afraid to look into my own history because I don't want to see what my ancestors did. But certainly, it's very likely they did some horrific things. And it's beautiful that the Jewish community and everyone can forgive the generations, the whole collective, but there is still that element. Do you have any thoughts on it? I don't know why I'm asking.
I do have, I mean, I do have thoughts, and Michelle might even have thoughts on that as a.
I do.
I think the power, I mean, I won't bore you with the details, but, I can have these nightmares, and I think the power of talking about it is part of the healing. And, and yes, you may find out some things that are pretty horrific, and yet the power of knowing and being able to, quote, forgive and say, that happened. That's not me. Yes. But I think there's power in lifting the veil and finding out.
Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you.
That was a good
Thank
question.
you.
Good question. So, one of the things we shared last night was our journeys to look at this multi-generational guilt or shame or trauma. And I did the same thing as Karen. I've written a memoir. I never published it. But I haven't been ready to. But I found out some very, very difficult things about my family history. But it was so healing. And it took me to Africa and to Tennessee, and it took me to the woods of Texas and all over the place to find out what in the heck happened. But guess what song my mother used to sing? Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. And she was the queen of denial and positivity. That's my mom.
Wow, that is wild.
Isn't that wild?
Woo!
This was her motto. Darling, life is a banquet, and most people are starving to death. And I think she was talking about a lot of starvation, not just food-wise, but
Right.
emotionally.
Wow.
Okay, so thank you,
Okay.
Karen, so much.
Well, thank you, really.
Rod, you want to?
Thank you.
Jason, all right. Thank you.
Wow. I mean, wow. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you guys for listening. It says on my piece of paper that I'm supposed to say some words. No, you know me, I'm very shy. I'm Jason Feddy. I'm Laguna's Jew. I know that Alan, I don't want to point out the Jews in the room, but that's a bit weird, isn't it? That was slightly awkward. There are other Jews here. Where are my Jews at? My Jew doll's not that great anymore. We're laughing, but it's a weird time to be a Jew, as you know. And not the first time in history, but I'm not here to complain about that, you know. I know how annoying we can be. But facing the sins of our forefathers is a thing that we have to do. You know, not everything, you know, life is a gift and a beautiful thing, as you well know. I don't have to tell you that. But sometimes it's not blissful. Sometimes it's even not very satisfying. And that's part of being a human being. Now, you can live in a world full of AI, and you can ask, I have a friend who's going through a terrible divorce right now, and he loves his Chat GPT, because Chat GPT says, "Good morning, Brad, how are you?" And then he says something, and the Chat GPT says, "That's really smart, Brad. That's really clever. May I just add something to that may help you make a connect. Now, he says, I said that's insane, and he says, well, that's all right for you, Jason. You like people. But I don't like people. Anybody who knows me knows I don't like people. But I am a person. So I have to live in a world full of people. Otherwise, where am I? I've just got to make it work. And as I say, sometimes that's not very satisfying. So this question of German people, the Germans have really figured it out. As Karen says, you know, everywhere you go, there's some monument to the Holocaust. They are, and you said it perfectly, they are responsible, not guilty. You could do that with slavery, Americans, if you wanted. If you wanted, you could do that with slavery. You could be responsible, but not guilty. If you wanted. If the Germans can do it, we're going to have to do it, let's be honest, with Gaza. We're going to have to do it. We're going to have to do it with the Nakba. And if we don't do it, we'll be like you with slavery. And I don't want to be like you with slavery. One more thing. People have talked about forgiveness today a lot. And I've struggled with the idea of forgiveness because I don't know what it's like. But I had to do some research for some projects I'm working on, and I had to find out. And there's a great quote from Lily Tomlin. What is forgiveness? Forgiveness is letting go of the need for a better past. Isn't that great? It may not ring that bell in your head, but it rang that bell in my head. You'll have some sort of quote that rings that bell in your head. But that, I went, and when you say it is what it is, which is a horrible phrase, but you know, I hate that phrase, it is what it is. But if you can not need the past to be any better, guess what happens? It gets better. Right? I don't need my childhood to be any better. And guess what? It's better. Anyway, I'm waffling on too much. This has been really powerful for me. Thank you very much. I can't wait to buy the book in a minute, which I will. And I'll have it signed, if you don't mind. With a little note saying how brilliant I am. I stopped you singing because I wanted to sing it. I wanted to sing my song, that song. I thought you were trying to get people singing Que Sera, Sera, and I just found the lyric online. I was like, no, don't take my moment away. Ava's here with the dog. This is my wife, Ava, my nice Jewish wife, Ava, and my nice shiksa dog. Oh, it's not a shiksa, it's a he now. We had a shiksa, now we've got a goy. He's a little white boy. When I was just... That's not too high, that's probably too high, isn't it? Let's try it. When I was just a little boy, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be pretty or will I be rich? And here's what she said to me. Que sera, whatever will be. Future's not ours to see. Sera, 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 whatever will be. And the future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be. It's kind of right. Right? When I grew up and I fell in love, what will be, will be. Now I have children of my own. They ask their mother, what will I be? Will I be handsome? Will I be rich? I tell them tenderly, que sera, sera. Whatever will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. What will be, will. Oh, la 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 la. What will be? La da di da di di da di di da da di da da di di da da. What will be, will be.
Let's have a hand for Jason Feddy, everybody. Jason Feddy. And a hand for Karen Baum Gordon. Come on, give it to her, give it to her, give it to her. Okay, if you are a member of NCC Church, I need you to stay for a couple of minutes after this. For everybody else, join us in Bridge Hall for some food, some drink, and a chance to meet Miss Gordon face to face. If you are a member of NCC, hang around for just a few minutes, okay? And then we'll join everybody in Bridge Hall, all right? If you're not an NCCer, we'll see you in Bridge Hall in a